Who's going to win promotion from League Two this season? Port Vale are top of the league, albeit having suffered defeat last time out at Gillingham, who themselves ended a 5-game losing streak. But it's Notts County and Doncaster Rovers who have really set my pulses racing so far this season. Walsall obviously in the mix as well. Plenty to discuss then, especially with MK Dons in sumptuous form at the moment, and even Crewe Alexandra have found some pretty good form after that poor start to the season. Plenty to discuss then on this League Two podcast. Yes, welcome along to this League Two podcast. Get subscribed to us on EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify, because that would help us out a lot. For now, I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host Ed Walker, an expert on all things fourth tier, and we're also joined by Danny from the One Up Front podcast of Salford City and the Old Dead Tree fanzine. How are you, Danny?
Magic. Good to see you both.
Yeah, good to see you too, Danny. Thanks for joining us. We're going to start with Ewan Hudson, who's a Bradford City supporter. Ewan, how are you feeling about Bradford City's prospects? And would you say you're more optimistic?
I'm going to sit back and enjoy this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite surprised by the title of who goes up and to be involved in this debate, because I don't think Bradford are going up. I think you've been very generous to my team.
I had to even it out somewhere, Ewan.
Yeah, I think maybe. No, I think our form is just so mixed at the moment. It's shocking in places, but with spits and spats of really, really good performances drizzled in there, and that consistency doesn't get you. Is what gets you promoted. Sorry, not this poor form. Can't seem to buy wins one week, but then putting in really good shifts the next. So that string of results is going to be so important for us if we do want to go up, and we don't have that at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, you're reliant on Andy Cook, and that's been the case at Bradford City for a while. Is there anyone else in an attacking sense for you, Ewan, that's shown signs of taking on some of that responsibility?
Yeah, well, I think we've got so many players that fit that bill. We do have one of the biggest squads in the league and a lot of depth. That's one of our big strengths. Mm-hmm. And we do have a lot of players in that sort of who can play number 10 or number 7 or number 8 that are threats from midfield. A lot of them are injured at the moment, but we do have those options in deep. Unfortunately, I think when you play a striker like Andy Cook, you are announcing, don't mark him at your peril. So when teams do, put 2 men on your focal point or have someone man marking throughout the entire game, it is difficult, obviously. And I don't think we've quite figured that out yet. Where other players have to step forward and provide something either with late runs into the box or simply just playing off the space that he creates. Because obviously, if you have someone man marking one player throughout an entire game, that's going to leave any defense exposed to late runners and players moving in from midfield.
Ed,
do you feel like there's quite a lot on, I guess, the wide players, the wing backs at the moment? Because you talked there about having individuals that you think could play 7, which is what I consider a kind of winger position, or an 8 is a kind of box-to-box midfielder. But your system doesn't call to wingers, and I wonder really about the balance of that midfield being right with available personnel. So is there quite a lot, you think, more than they can probably handle with the left wing back and the right wing back? It would be Tyreek Wright, but we've got him with a little injury now, so it's probably going to be more Lewis Richards. And then Jay Ben seems to be taking Brad Halliday's spot at the minute on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the Jay Ben situation particularly, because I don't think Halliday deserves the treatment he's getting, maybe, to be sort of shoved off so easily. But they both come out and spoken about it and said that competition is really good. So, but I think for me, form and playing regularly is what makes good teams, that sort of gelling, because we do see often in this league, there's always a couple of teams that surprise us because the squad gels so well and they do get that momentum going. So I'm surprised we've decided to change it up. But I think Wright going forward, I don't think will be the starting wing back. I think Richard showed, especially in the game against Doncaster, why he's a lot better, especially going backwards and defending. Wright is.
Well, I was going to say
really
Wright's always been seen as a winger, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he is.
I know it's quite a
very
trend
much.
now. I know it's quite a trend nowadays to play wing as a wing back, but you always think you're naturally going to be better forwards than backwards in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely a winger masquerading as a wing back, and that was kind of proved against Doncaster, where he did really struggle going back, but also going forward, and was visibly tired by sort of the 60th minute mark because he was having to backtrack and catch Doncaster when they broke as well, which is really difficult, obviously.
So where are we with this strike partner then? Because at the minute, what it feels like is Bradford are a fairly average, okay League Two side with an exceptional centre forward in Andy Cook, who will get a source of goals as we know. And there's numbers of people who could be that strike partner: Tyler Smith, Verdane Oliver, Oliver Sanderson, Callum Kavanagh. Don't know if Bobby Poynton's had to go up there at some point, but I am really not clued up really on who the suitable partner is. Is it someone that plays to his strengths, or is it someone that's a bit likewise like him?
It's definitely not someone likewise like him. I really dislike the sort of trend that's been going on the last few matches where we've been losing a game and we start throwing on Verdane Oliver onto the pitch to have two centre forward. I don't think it works. I think Oliver's far too rusty now. He doesn't get enough game time to be a threat, really.
He's been there age. Was it Derek who brought? Would Derek Adams bring him in? Because it's been a few years.
It was like 2022.
Yeah,
I think.
it's a problem as well because he's one of the highest wage earners at the club, and he does need moved on. That's a whole nother debate though that we won't go into. In terms of who partners Andy Cook, I think it is just a case of, like I've already mentioned, of someone finding that space that he creates and playing off that. I know obviously Bradford fans will constantly make this comparison of Wells and Hansen, but that was the perfect example of what we need at the moment. A really big striker who has a massive presence in the box, who is the target man. And you need a smaller striker to play off him, use that space that he creates, get on the end of knockdowns, run his socks off. And we don't seem to have a player at the moment who is willing to step up to that. Tyler Smith was the one who started against Doncaster, which was a really strange decision, I think, because he has played almost no football this season. Kavanagh's form has been pretty poor. Sanderson seems to have been phased out the team after a really good start. We're not really sure what the ideal formation is, certainly up there. But I think what Alexander needs to do is stick with someone and allow that person to gain a bit of momentum, get a goal, and then move from there.
I didn't get the chance to look at the extended highlights from the 1-0 loss at Fleetwood, but I'm looking at the starting 11 now, and what it seems to me is a little bit imbalanced, whereby you've got a right back at right centre back. I know Lewis Richard is quite a versatile defender, but he's playing sort of left centre back. You've got Jamie Walker, who's an attacking midfielder in deep midfield. You've got a striker in Callum Kavanagh as an attacking midfielder. You've got two target men.
I think I'd call Kavanagh a forward more than a striker, Gab.
Oh, would you? Okay.
My vision, I think we're a little while back now, but I kind of had this visualization. Bradford were going to kind of go 3-4-2-1 with Cook leading the line, and then having that a bit of expressive pair of Kavanagh and Poynton playing as 2-10 behind. I think we saw that a little bit last season.
Yeah, we saw that last season, and it was something that happened at the end of the Doncaster game where we went three up front, and you could tell that obviously Oliver and Cook were going to lead the line, and then Kavanagh would sit behind them. But I definitely think it's a two up front. They're trying to play off each other. Definitely, I think that three is gone now.
But okay, so I'll take the point on Kavanagh, but then just generally looking at the 11, to me, it just looks a little bit imbalanced, a little bit like, for instance, according to BBC, I don't know how accurate BBC are, but
I'm just gonna have a
Bobby
look.
Poynton played left wing back, so you could argue that's 3 or 4 players that you're looking at that are playing out of position.
It is very much.
There's one actual centre back in that team. In a back three system.
It's, I think, very much the expression is square pegs in round holes. We do have a strong squad with a lot of depth. Granted, we do have quite a few injuries at the moment. Kieran Kelly and Baldwin are both out, but I don't think that's any excuse to be playing 3 centre backs, 2 of which
that's
are
why you have
wing backs.
Diabate and Shepherd.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't understand sometimes what Alexander is going for. With regards to the midfield, if it was a 3-4-1-2, then Walker playing that box to box. We've seen it quite a lot.
Really, you think Jamie Walker's a box to box midfielder?
No, not at all. But
Right.
but when he plays alongside Smallwood, who is a traditional 6, then it does give him more of a license to roam
Well,
and
not
get
really,
forward.
because Richie Smallwood can't cover any ground. His legs are
No, of
completely
course not.
gone.
That's what I'm saying. It's completely flawed. I'm explaining sort of what's possibly going through Alexander's head.
Right.
But I think in the later stages of that Fleetwood game, it did kind of work because Walker was breaking into the box with regularity and could have had 2 goals for himself probably. But yeah, again, it's just square pegs in round holes. I don't know why we're insisting on this sort of this style. If we're not going to say, well, we've got wing backs, we're going to use them, and we're going to get the ball in the box as much as we can.
I think we need a cloning machine and clone a load of Alex Pattersons and make that the midfield 5.
I wouldn't want him. He's got kneecaps made of breadsticks.
That's the problem. It's always the one you want that's never fit, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the case.
Yeah, I do feel like you're missing that bit of athleticism, that kind of box-to-box presence in midfield. So, yeah, hopefully you can find that. You said you're not going to get promoted. Is that so? That's the feeling, is it? You don't think you're going to get top 7?
I don't know. It's hard to guess at the moment because we do have a lot of injuries. I've already mentioned Patterson. Sarsevic's also out, expected to return fairly soon. Kieran Kelly as well. The squad will get stronger, but we just need to start winning games to gain that momentum because we went into the Doncaster game on a really, really good run of form with a lot of solid performances behind us. And then we were okay in that game, obviously lost it, seemed to set ourselves up wrong. And then that has just caused a chain reaction of really, really poor results, Fleetwood being sort of the pick of the bunch, really.
Well, a lot of work to do, hopefully, so the injuries can mitigate some of those challenges, but I think there's a lot for Graham Alexander to work on at the moment. So tricky time for Bradford City, and hopefully there's a few solutions in place next time we speak to you.
Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment at all.
Okay, all right. Cheers, Ewan. Thanks for joining us. Right, well, I'm delighted to be joined now by James from the ME7 podcast on Gillingham. Good evening, James. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate joining us this evening. 1-0 victory for Gillingham over Port Vale. Do you know what? I never really felt Gillingham were that much worse than Port Vale. I think if you had gone about a month beforehand, you'd have been on similar sort of point tallies. It's just in the last month, Vale have gone on this crazy run. Gillingham had lost a lot of games, but I think you found yourselves on the wrong side of fine margins. I think Vale have found themselves on the right side, and again, it seemed like a very low margins game on Saturday.
Yeah, there wasn't much. Well, funny enough that our goal was the only shot on target in the whole game. So that suggests all you probably need to know about the affair. And it's a weird one, Gabe, is that on paper in the run of games that we've lost, and obviously football's not played on paper, but you would certainly expect us to have won the games that we've actually lost. But it seems to be that every time that we play a team sort of up the top end of the table, we seem to get a positive result. So I don't know whether it's we prefer teams coming at us and then we can sort of play our game and keep the ball a little bit more and counter on teams a little bit more. But yeah, I wasn't overly impressed by Port Vale on Saturday afternoon. I wasn't too sure on why they are where they are, but at the same time, I'm sure a lot of fans outside of Gills are hugely surprised on the terrible run that we've gone on. So yeah, football's a funny old game, but yeah, definitely fine margins.
Certainly are. Danny, I don't know if you've seen Salford play Gillingham yet.
We haven't played them, no. But I was going to comment on the Port Vale side of things because I think they were our first game, and I mean, I was talking to quite a few of their fans before the game, and they were saying, "Oh, I'm not quite sure. We've just come down, and how's it going to be? I'm not quite sure about the manager." And then I was particularly interested in Laurent Solage because he was on loan with us from Brighton maybe 2 seasons ago. And Yeah, I would say similar to what James has said. I just thought, and like, what's this all about? Like, obviously they're doing very well, but I couldn't particularly, based on that performance, and James said the same, of what we've seen. I can't see the magic elixir that's kind of foxing teams. They looked efficient, and that was all I could say about them. And we were crap on the day, so.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, I suppose to swing it back to Gillingham then, James, Mark Bonner's recently gone for that defensive trio of Connor Masterson, Max Amer and Shadrach Oji, three of the top centre-backs in League Two, arguably right there. Did it show on Saturday having that defensive personnel?
Yeah, I think it did, and I think it's probably fair to say since he's gone to the back three, we've looked a lot more defensively sound. It's probably no surprise, considering, like you've just said, is that you would probably argue that three of those centre halves that you would mention would probably get in most League Two sides. In all fairness, I think it also suits Romeo Hutton at right wing back when we've seen a back four. Hutton's defensive problems have clearly been shown. He's not a defensive right back at all. He can't defend. It's fair to say he cost us a point at Swindon because he didn't jump with Harry Smith. He cost us the points that day. And then you've got Max Clark the other side, but sometimes we play Jaden Clark at left wing back, but either of them like to get forward, which is good. It suits the midfield three, and I think in this Gillingham, I know Mark Bonner wanted to play a 4-2-3-1 when he first came into the job, but without Elliot Nevitt, without Jules Lapsley in the 10, without a Johnny Williams in the 10, without Bradley Datt being fit, it just can't happen. So it's good to see that Bonner's not stuck to that and being stubborn. He's changed to a back three, and I think at the moment, with what's fit, it's probably suiting us a little bit more.
Ed?
Oh, Gillingham made no sense in 23-24, and again, they make no sense in 24-25. You go a month without any points, and then you're still 8th. It's just such a strange thing. I kind of agree. It feels like we're not seeing this full potential group yet because of absence of Elliot Nevitt. I think I've seen... Has Jack Nolan been playing up top at times at the minute?
He's been playing in the 10, which, you know what, this is going to be a big shout. He's been one of the most underwhelming signings this season by a long stretch. He started out wide, and he started out like a house on fire, and hasn't really got a kick since. He then did an interview with the local paper the other week and said that he wants to play down the centre of the pitch. For the life of me, I'm not sure why, because he's not
a winger.
He's a winger for a start.
100% a winger.
He's not strong enough. Positionally, he can't pick up the ball on the half turn and make things happen. So I don't know why he wants to. Maybe it's the lack of confidence at the fact what's happening out wide to him that he wants to get on the ball a lot more. But if anything, he's more of a hindrance standing there. So. Yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, you're probably right. I think the thing is as well is that with the injuries, and I know we keep coming back to injuries, and I don't want to make excuses for it, but Mark Bonner's not being able to pick his best 11 all season. It's not happened.
What is, James? I'd love for you to answer me this. What is the best 11 when everyone's fit?
I think Bradley Dack and everyone else.
Is that including Bradley Dack?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think in all fairness, it has to be Glenn Morris for me in goal. I think then it's Romeo Hutton right back, Connor Masterson, Shadow G. Max Amer doesn't get the team for me. I think Amer and Masterson are the best centre pairing. Then it's Max Clark. Then it's Max Clark. Then it's Amani Little and Robbie McKenzie as the two holding midfielders.
Oh, Robbie McKenzie over Ethan Coleman.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree with that.
Ethan Coleman for me has gone massively backwards since the season's kicked off. Can we just pause on that though, James? Because that is considering before the start of the season, that would have been an.
You've rattled him here. Oh, you've rattled him.
Yeah,
You've rattled him.
it seems to me that Ethan didn't have a pre-season. He was not fit. He was then put straight into the team. He played 90, he played set, like he just kept playing and playing and playing. Then got himself sent off. I think he then, at the time he got himself sent off, picked up another ankle injury. Don't think he's recovered from that. And I think we're seeing a half-fit Ethan Coleman at the moment. Armani Little's been our best signing this summer by an absolute stretch. He's a League One midfielder. He should be the captain of the football club. I'm not sure why he isn't. Robin McKenzie. That's the thing, is that there's no I'm trying to think of the word, but since them two have stopped playing has been our downfall in run of form. And that's no coincidence. Since Armani Little and Robin McKenzie have stopped playing together in holding midfield, we've not won games. And I think that's been a massive, massive part on why our run of form has gone the way it has. With them two and holding midfield, I think on the right, it has to be Jack Nolan. Yeah, I know he's been underwhelming, but I feel that if you can then get the right players around him, you'll start getting a tune out of him. Jack Nolan on the right, Aaron Rowe on the left, Brady Dack in the 10 behind Elliot Nevitt. And I think for me, the front four, when fit, when 100%, you're looking at one of the best League Two team in there on paper. But unfortunately, we've had a rotten luck of injury.
Well, there you go. It sounds like getting over the injury challenges is going to be the biggest hurdle for Gillingham. If I was to push you right now, James, do you think you're going to get into the top 7 this season?
Yeah, I think we are. I think Mark Bonner's sides always come on strong in the second half of the season. We saw that at Cambridge. I think he's going to have another window under his belt in January. I can imagine that. Because look, when Mark Bonner took this job, he knew that the pressure, what was coming. He knew the expectation of what was coming to get out of League Two this season. I think if we finish in the playoffs, but we fall short, I think Brad will accept that. But it's another window in January to get the side sorted. He knows now, after working with the squad for 6 months or so, what he will need in the window. I think
a thick 10. You need a thick 10.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, like you've just said, we've been on a rotten run of form and we're still 8th. I think that's probably says all you need to know. We don't need a lot, do we?
I'm starting to wonder if Aaron Rowe's the problem here, because I'm just thinking about the start of the season and we had it. Yeah, as you said, it was settled. It was Nolan on the right. We had a bit of rotation with striker, but it was Nolan on the right and Aaron Rowe on the left, and that was looking lovely at the start. And since that's come away and he's had to come out, it's not quite the same with Thorwald Harris with this team.
No, I just think I think the front four was almost settled, and I think we caused Carlisle absolute carnage on opening day because they had Jack Nolan one side to deal with, and then when Nolan didn't fancy going at his fullback, he'd switch to play to Aaron Rowe, and Aaron Rowe would then go at his fullback, and it was absolute. Carlisle just capitulated in the second half because they just could not deal with it. So I think you're probably right, Ed. Is that he's been a big miss for us as well.
Certainly has. Well, listen, James. Hopefully, Gillingham can start to recover some form and get a few players back, especially after the international weekend. So, best luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you, mate.
And keep up the good work on the ME7 podcast.
Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, James. Danny, this is primarily a podcast on promotion contenders in League Two.
Yeah. You had a section, Gab, of Brad the players talking our position. I was waiting for you to bring Danny in on Salford.
I was going to
players our position. We could have a piece of ourselves on Salford.
I didn't want to take the light off you in on that, but yeah, I could have chipped in on the because I was making notes actually as he was talking about how many that we've got out of position. But again, back to you, Gab. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask you, how are you feeling about Salford City's season so far?
Here we go.
It's difficult, I think. It's because I think if you expect to see anything in what looks to me to be a completely different project than last season. Last season was survival, I think, and then it was kind of we coasted over the finish line, kind of. Very direct, very Sam Allardyce, as Cal said himself. And this season, you could kind of see it a little bit in pre-season that we're trying to do. We've not played the 4-3-3 as yet, but everything else, his principles, as Ryan Gigg was saying at the fans forum last week, the principles of what Cal's trying to do. You can kind of see what that is, but the square pegs in round holes. I'm thinking it's maybe something on the Coach's Voice website, something I'm missing. You know, it's like a trend now to try and fit Kelly and Mai at left wing back or Josh Osterfield as a left centre back.
There's two things I've noticed nowadays with a lot of teams. There seems to be this real trend of, yes, playing wing as a wing back and also having a back three where your outer two centre backs are probably natural fullbacks. It must be something in possession base, but I'm really noticing this with a lot of teams at different levels. Yeah. They want that more progressive area. This idea that you essentially out of possession become a very wide back three with your wing backs almost essentially wingers in the more natural positions. And it looks weird when you see it on a lineup graphic. I don't know if it's actually that practical or not.
Yeah, because I mean, I look at a player like, I mean, I've mentioned Osterfield, and the more I've watched him, the more Gab Sutton's just like tick, yes, poor tackler, yes, weak, yes, lightweight, yes, all these kind of things. Whereas for a game or two when he was subbing at left centre back, he looked like he was John Stones reincarnate. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's very odd to me to look at. I mean, I made a bit of a note of him here. So I've mentioned Osterfield. Garbutt's played as a centre back, which he's not really, is on the left side. Nope. Liam Shepherd, when he's fit, has played as a right centre back. He can overlap, so you can do a bit of the Sheffield United stuff from a few years ago. Haji Minoga has played as a middle centre back in a back three, which is odd, but looks very good against Wrexham, albeit in a meaningless EFL game. And that's about it. And Tom Edwards, if I've not mentioned him already, I find him a bizarre choice as a right centre-back. Great distributor, but he can't run. It's too big. So that's 5 players who...
John Taylor?
John Taylor's played he's played as a right wing back. We fitted him in there. But last night, let me tell you this: we've had 3 centre backs. None of them were centre backs. Never mind your outside 2. The middle one was Tom Edwards.
Kevin Burke. I wonder what happened to Kevin Burke.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that last night.
Brilliant pre-season. Honestly, I never let it be said that Kevin Burkle wasn't at it all pre-season. Best player of pre-season, the most minutes of pre-season, just before the league campaign started. Had a bit of an injury. So.
But I love that Wolves. I'm looking at it here. You got Luamba and Malcolm at wing backs.
Luamba is a wing back.
Yeah,
right.
June Luamba at left wing back on the minute. Yeah,
on the left, man.
The only thing that actually looks practical is Matt Young in goal, McCanley at 10, and Cleary at Stockton as the front 2. That midfield 4 in defence is just I mean, it's here for trophy, so you do try to put 11s together anyway. But that was an interesting makeup, seeing what there was on Tuesday night.
Yeah, it was a meaningless game. I mean, I think we're out of it. I don't think it mattered that we won. And Matt Young saved 2 penalties. Admittedly, the second save from the second penalty was actually scoring the rebound, but saved those 2. Handling looked really good. Schmeichel-esque, very, very good, but he's not played a league game yet. So whether he's going to stay around to see what happens after January, if Sunderland want him to sit on the bench, I don't know.
Danny, I'd be surprised if Sunderland are happy for him to sit on the bench because, as I said to you in the summer, the reviews that he got from Darlington and Sunderland as well, that he's just this incredible, prodigious talent. So I think that maybe Sunderland would have probably envisaged him.
You're not displacing Jamie Jones, though. He's 17 years his senior, I think. It's a huge age difference.
I think he's got a higher ceiling, though.
Yeah, he might have a higher ceiling, but I'm saying right now, do you displace Jamie Jones in this Salford team?
Could I just wade in on that because of seeing I think every minute, apart from the games where I've just thought we're losing too heavily, I'll leave with 5 minutes to go. Jamie Jones had a tremendous hot streak about 3 or 4 games where he was Alex Kearns times 10. He was better than anything I've seen there. Before pre-season looked very, very shaky as kind of trying to play out more often. I don't think Jones is that kind of player. I think Young is, as he showed last night. He can do that kind of flat Edison kind of drill out to the wing that not a lot of players can do. As a goalkeeper, I genuinely don't think there's a massive amount in it. I know there's a few decades between the two of them. But I honestly thought, as maybe Tom Williams did pre-season, that Matty was coming in as the number one because we had such a hole to fill.
I would
because
have
Kearns
expected
left.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
yeah, interesting.
how many other teams had like a surprise gap at number one going into the season apart from us?
I mean,
There was us.
the visualization I had really was when Jamie Jones came in middle of July, I think was the time he arrived, and the instinct to me was that was the Alex Cairns, and then you were saying, right, who's the backup? It's either going to be one of your very young kids out of the academy, or you get a loanee in, and there was the loanee there. So I'm not too surprised with how that goalkeeper unit looks at the minute.
Yeah, it's just the high-profile nature for me. I think it's just this Matty could be. I know maybe not at the moment, but is potentially otherworldly. You know, but we'll see how it goes, and we'll see if we can keep him longer than January. I hope we do. I hope we don't waste his opportunity to have someone who's almost as good as a number one, which is very unusual in most teams.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Danny, my club had Jordan Pickford on loan for a month, so don't worry, it still comes out all right.
That's what I'm talking about. He's the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine from Sunderland's point of view that if Matty Young isn't playing hasn't played at all by January, I think they'd probably look to recall him and send him somewhere that he'll get minutes, because I think that would be the whole purpose from their point of view of him going out on loan. How's Stefan Negri getting on? And well, Stefan Negri is one, and also the lad who used to be at Plymouth Argyle, Nottingham Forest.
Tyrese Forner.
Tyrese Forner, thank you, Ed. I don't know what I'd do without you.
We've got to start with Forner. We've got to start with Forner because that has been, and this is not just me talking. I'm talking on behalf of the fan base here because I smelt it in the game on Saturday that the tide has completely turned against him because I think he made his debut against Bradford away earlier this season. Looked fine, looked very disciplined. Him and Osama Ashley as we were playing a back four at the time. Heat map showed they just didn't move from the double pivot position. They were fine. Absolutely great. We kept Bradford out. I think it was 0-0. When he's played in that position and he's disciplined, as he did against Chesterfield away, where I think it was 1-1, Forner, absolutely fine. When he's given the leash to hold on to the ball too long and be our creative funnel, disaster, absolute disaster, because he's a 25-year-old schoolboy footballer, and I absolutely hate to see what he's doing. And although there wasn't booing on Saturday, there was so much frustration from his teammates, Luke Garbutt, Curtis Tilt, etc., and the fans. Just like he's doing it again. He's trying to get into these impossible situations, losing the ball, and we cannot get out of our own half because it's all about Tyrese, which I don't like, and I'd happily send him back where he came from. January, go back to Derby. Not interested. Really? I don't think any of us are. We'd rather see the kids. Definitely. Gosh, but that's Tyrese.
Wow, that really surprises me.
Okay,
because I've felt like he brings a lot of energy and physicality to the side, and I think when he's played deeper in his career, he's been able to look after the ball quite well as well. Like sort of earlier in his career, I agree. I wouldn't say he's hugely creative, but I'm surprised. Because I've always been tended to be quite a big fan.
Well, again, I feel like I'm repeating myself from previously. I thought the creative duty in this team was supposed to go to someone else. There's a lad called Ben Woodburn who I thought was going to have that creative role. Maybe Conor McCanley a bit further forwards.
Yeah.
I kind of had this idea that it was Ashley and Thorner, as you say, to just provide a bit of stability in the middle, be that kind of transition, work the ball through to the final third.
Yeah, I just feel that it feels very kind of me with Tyrese. It's like people have actually, I've seen Kelly and Mai, for instance, stop. He just doesn't pass. He's on the same side as him on the left, and he doesn't pass to him because he knows he won't get it back. Killian Kouassi doesn't seem to lay it off to him because it won't come back. And I just think, well, if we've seen that on a match day, what's it like in training? And why is Carl not addressing it? But I know you also asked about Stefan Negru, Gab.
Sure.
So I don't want to dominate too much on that. But Stefan Negru,
I appreciate it. It's interesting.
8.5 to 9 out of 10 first 5 or 6 games. Like, just I maybe was on one of these with you possibly early in the season, just saying how great he was and what a brilliant defensive organizer Alex Bruce was. Well, maybe I was wrong about that. But Negru had a bit of a spell where he was injured and has come back. And I would say now he's struggling to get to 7.5. He's still very capable, very precise, very calm and composed, but he's not. he's not last ditch Harry. He's not the young John Terry anymore that can do everything and he's everywhere saving the team. It's just he's kind of just consistent, but not brilliant at the moment. I would say.
Interesting. Well, hopefully you can rediscover that consistency in time. So I've got a question for you then, Danny, just to wrap up this Salford segment. Would you say that, in contrast with when we spoke on our summer deep dive, you're more optimistic about Salford's chances this season, less optimistic, or about the same?
Because I don't feel some of the issues that are happening, I'd even criticise Killian Kouassi for being a bit greedy. I feel that sometimes if you bring in attack-minded loanee players of that age, they tend to want to make a highlight reel. They tend to want to get stats. And I'm feeling that from what I can see. So I want Kouassi to stay because he's got Matt Smith elements, but lots of pace and he's more mobile. So I like that, But if Forner is not dropped immediately or disciplined or something happening there, and he's continuing to do this, which is really kind of corroding the spirit of the team, then I think we're going to be really struggling. I think it's a bad apple there. I don't know what he's like as a person, but as a player, I think he's rotting the cart. So let's say Forner, for whatever reason, wants to go back to Derby. We bring someone else in. We have a good transfer window. And most importantly, the XG defier, Hakeem Adelakan, comes back because he can score goals out of absolute. When we had XG 24th out of the league, he was defying that by beating Cheltenham on his own. So
yes, in that last half an hour,
he's a big deal. I honestly think Forner is make or break. Keep him, we do poorly. Get rid of him and replace him with someone even adequate who's better for team spirit. I think we'll do lower mid-table or even mid-table, but nothing more than that. No.
Okay, interesting. So in terms of teams that you've seen in the flesh then, Danny, who would you say in terms of opposition sides have really stood out to you? Obviously, we're talking about Notts County, Doncaster are the ones that really stood out to me in League Two so far.
Walsall.
What about you? Walsall, of course,
Fleetwood.
Go on then, make your case.
Because I don't know if both of you know, but I think Gab knows that I'm pretty ignorant of what's happening in like the football scene because I spend so much time devoted to my own club with the fanzine and with the podcast that I turned up not knowing where Fleetwood were in the league for when we played them away. And in fact, I watched a previous game of theirs on TV against Morecambe just because Marcus Dackers was playing. I thought, let's see how Dackers is doing. And I was very, very impressed with Fleetwood. And then I saw them on the game when they played us, and I thought these are comfortably in the top three. Comfortably, like the precision, pace, direct but accurate. It was just like, what is this? Why can't we play like this? And I've actually seen some of the give and go moves that they played against us that night. I think that Cal's copied and pasted them and tried to incorporate them into our play. So Fleetwood, for me, were absolutely they look to be built with an identity that I could only dream of. So they're my kind of jealous crush at the moment.
You're speaking the way a lot of people actually think about them, Danny, because Fleetwood is one we've all kind of looked at and thought it's not really reflected in that 12th place position at the minute. And I think the problem for them, and you will have seen it in that game, they can't win home games.
No.
This home record is really letting them down. They blew that chance and the Okoronkwo goal that denies them the win in the end. I think it would only been their second home win of the season. So a lot of quality individuals in there, but it's just not clicking quite well enough. And at the minute, they've got a defensive injury crisis, which is really hurting them as well. So they were one I was quite big on before the season started. And as we go on, you have to kind of start to lose a little bit of buzz for them just because it doesn't feel like it's going to quite happen to them the way it's going.
Yeah, again, it's about foundations for me. That I'm not here to criticise my own club and to say that we're built a castle made on sand. But when I look at some of the signings, you've mentioned Woodburn, I've mentioned Edwards. Square pegs in round holes. I don't see that kind of foundation because we played a particular formation all the way through pre-season, which was like a 4-2-3-1 with a high left back. And we changed quite quickly into a back three that now doesn't really suit anybody in the season proper. So And bearing in mind, what were the players that we brought in? Which system were they recruited for? Because it's very difficult to tell now. Honestly, I'm very confused by it. And when you look at it, I even did an article in the fanzine talking about, Cal was talking about risks. We've had to take a lot of risks in the transfer market. Well, fair enough. Edwards is a risk because other people might have thought, is he in match shape? He's still not, I would say. Ben Woodburn, yes, great CV kind of, but very lightweight and doesn't really like to do a lot of running, as someone on this podcast might have said. So this is the way it is. And he was actually before he was suspended. He was in drop territory. He'd been dropped for multiple games in a row at Ben, probably on a good wage. Cole Stockton, I've not even said about him, but everybody just wants him gone. People are in and they're out before you know what's going on because they're not good enough, or they don't fit. I should say that's what, it doesn't fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think lots of work needs to be done from Salford City on the recruitment process, and it's up to Carl Robinson to. I mean, who's still from the class of '92 still there? I think Ryan Giggs is still there.
Yeah.
Gary Neville's left. Nicky Butt, I think, left, didn't he? Is Scholes still there?
Yeah. So the only ones day to day now, I believe, are Scholes' recruitment side, and Giggs is director of football.
Giggs is there. Okay, so Scholes and Giggs, so lots of work for them to do in terms of that recruitment process. In January, I wanted to move on towards Grimsby Town. Had a couple of comments. First of all, thanks to Ellis. Enjoyed the interview with David Artell, which is on the Sportsman. That's up now. You can check it out on YouTube. And I've also had a question, I think, from Dan. How much do you consider Grimsby promotion candidates? So I'm going to hold off on that one because we're joined by Jason Sadler from the View from the Findus podcast of Grimsby Town. Good evening, Jason. Thanks so much for your time, for joining us this evening. How are you keeping?
Hi, yeah, really well. Thank you, mate. Really well. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, great. Good to have you on. Just wondering, I think this season everyone thought of as being a bit of a rebuilding campaign for Grimsby Town, where, if you could finish mid-table, top half, and make some of that stylistic and developmental progress, then that would be a good season. Are you starting to get a little bit ahead of yourselves in terms of thinking, could we be a playoff contender this season?
So, yeah, I don't think, the stats certainly don't point towards us being playoff contenders. If you look at sort of XG and that sort of stuff, we're definitely not pushing for that. But I think, the biggest shock is our away form after last season's away form. We won 2 all season last year away from home. We've won 5 already this year. So I think that's the biggest shock to most Grimsby fans. And also the fact that we are where we are with the injuries we've had this season. The likes of sort of Curtis Thompson, who was sort of a colossus that second half of last season to keep us in the league, and Jordan Davis, who looked like a really, really good signing on paper from Wrexham, and in his first 3 games sort of got a few goals and looked really good. So with those 2 sort of key injuries that we've had, I think we're sort of probably punching above our weight a little bit, to be honest, Gab.
Interesting. You suppose you're punching above your weight in one sense, but then you're also doing very well to be in the top 7, given the volume of injuries that you've got. You must be glad to have the likes of Curtis Thompson and Jordan Davis coming back fit now.
Yeah, absolutely. When they got injured, obviously 2 players that are sort of key central midfield players, you were sort of a little bit worried around sort of the squad depth. But actually, to be fair to sort of the likes of Kieran Green and Evan Corey, they've been absolutely phenomenal. The pair of them have been absolutely phenomenal this season, probably battling out for player of the season between the pair of them. I don't know if you saw the goal at the weekend, all of you, but that outside of the foot pass from Kieran Green was just, if that's in the Premier League, everyone's going mad about it, aren't they? So, I think, it's positive, because if we're in this position already and we've got, some really good players to come back from injury, and there's players like Jaden Luca who we've not seen much of, who's come in.
He played very well against Lincoln City in the EFL Trophy, didn't he, Jason?
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah, he was really good in that game. He only got, I think it was 45 or 60 minutes in that game. He didn't, because he's coming back from injury. And then another injury sort of flared up. So he's just coming back again. I think he looks like a talent, that lad, as well. So, yeah, it is exciting, considering we're in the position we are with the players that we've got to come back still. Thompson and Davis both got 25, 30 minutes against Chesterfield in the cup last night. So that's good to see.
Certainly is. Ed, where are you sort of rating Grimsby now? Do you see them as a top 10 side in League Two?
If they play every game away for the rest of the season, yeah, have them for the title as far as I'm concerned. They're fantastic. I wanted to ask about Luca Barrington. Really intrigued me because I think going into the start of the season, we know the individual quality that Charles Vernon can possess, especially coming off that right-hand side. It's his specialty. And I was quite keen on seeing a bit of Svan Thorsen, seeing a little bit of him in Europe, seeing him come into the Football League. It felt like it's always quite interesting when you pick up an Icelandic forward in League Two, isn't it? It stands out straight away. But Barrington's the one who I think has really seized the chance by Vernon's injury, I'm getting the sense.
Yeah, I mean, Barrington's played quite a lot of minutes for us, and he probably wouldn't have expected to play as many minutes as he had. Like you just said, we've got Svan Thorsen, we've got Luca that can play out wide as well. The likes of Wilson and Pike, who I don't think will get much of a look in now, if I'm being honest, moving forward. They're both injured currently, but they both played
I could see them being offloaded in January. Donovan Wilson and Rick Pike.
100%. I mean, I think sort of David Artell sort of called out Jonathan Wilson around sort of 3 times. He's pulled up in the warm-ups, and this last one he is actually properly injured and he's out for a little while now, but he has sort of pulled out in warm-ups 3 times. So I agree. I think both of those two might end up moving on, and I think this January transfer window will be quite a big one. But going back to Luca Barrington, yeah, he's done really well. He scored a few goals for us. He's played better when he's actually played as a number 10 in behind 2 centre forwards when we've played wing backs. So in the games where we've played wing backs, Barrington's played as the number 10, and that's actually when he's looked at his best, I think, rather than sort of wide, which is quite surprising because I was the same as yourself, Ed. I thought he was going to play wide more for us, to be honest.
It's more to do with the fact you seem to have a very clear 4-1-4-1 shape, essentially. Kind of McEachran at the base of midfield, Corey and Green in there. I actually want to touch on Corey because he's a very young lad. We've known about him for quite a long time. I think he must have made his debut when he was about 17, 18, something like that. And he's into his 20s now. And I was trying to work out where he was, and is he like a left midfielder? Is he like a left back? Is he a centre midfielder? He's got that versatility to cover those areas. And I wonder if you think now, is he a settled midfielder who could slot in at left back, for instance, if one of Carson or Hume isn't around?
Yeah, so I think Evan Corey is the man that's more likely to drop in at left back. So he's played left back this season once for us when both Hume and Carson were injured for a game. He'd be the one that's more likely to drop in at left back, to be honest. McEachran's playing in the, you described the 4-1-4-1 formation, which is what we've played the most this season.
Yep.
McEachran's played as the sort of deep lying midfielder. I listened to your interview, Gab, around with David Artell, and you said about Corey, could he do better coming to get the ball off the defenders? Actually, that's what McEachran's doing extremely well for us this season. And I was quite surprised about McEachran's, I suppose, toughness, if you like. I didn't expect him to be tough tackling, getting stuck in as much as he is. I see him as more of a fancy footballer.
I thought this was Kieran Green. I had this visual. Maybe I'm thinking of Kean Spencer Barrow, but I thought Kieran Green was this guy who's just going to sit in and just be a destroyer in there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the way that we've lined up our midfield 3 is not how I would have expected it this season. I would have expected Kieran Green to play with the injuries we've got, by the way. So I would have expected Davis and Thompson start with the injuries we've got. I'd have expected Green to play the 1, breaking things up. But Green, even though I've just described how brilliant that ball was that he played, he's not the most technically gifted. And I thought
you were going to say it's like a Yaya Toure figure.
No, I mean, he's playing like that at the minute. I tell you, he's been fantastic. But no, I don't expect Kieran Green's not the one that will come to defence and take the ball. And the way David Artell likes to play is that defensive midfielder needs to be a footballer. And McEachran absolutely is that.
Absolutely. I think for me with Kieran Green, I actually think Kieran Green, when he's on the move, I actually think he is a decent footballer because I think he can play those sort of flicks and he can come up with things. But I don't think he's someone that's going to get you going from a standing start, i.e. collecting from the defence and getting it. I don't think that's his game. But the kind of the oomph that he brings Grimsby with those runs off the ball that really take runners away, even if he's not directly involved like he was, for the goal the other day. He takes people away and he kind of can be a bit of a distraction sometimes with those runs. But actually, I'm surprised that George McEachran has done as well as you've said there, Jason, in terms of the aggressive, gritty side of the game, because for a former England youth international that's had to drop down to League Two and hasn't. No. So there's Josh McEachran and this is George McEachran.
Yeah, wasn't that Josh who was England? I forget that.
Yes, no, it was
too
Josh
many McEachrans in football.
but also George McEachran was England youth, and I think
he was in the under-17s England winning team for the World Cup.
Was he
George
in that
McEachran was. Okay. Yeah, he was. Yeah.
See, that's why Paul Sims got sacked to Carlisle. He didn't have him in his Carlisle team. He get to play with him again. Or was he the 20s? He was the 20s manager, wasn't it? No, that was Steve Scumber. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Jason, can I have a quick mention for the centre backs as well? Harvey Rogers, Cameron McJanet. Rogers, I can't remember when he came in. He came in last year, didn't he? And I was really keen on it coming to Accrington. Very versatile defender across the back line, settled in centre back. I wasn't very clued up on McJanet when he arrived from Derry City, coming across from Northern Ireland. And I wonder how you found the performance of him alongside Rogers in that centre back partnership.
I've just sort of been a bit unfair actually on McJanet, because I've said about Corey and Green battling out for player of the season. I think I've been a bit unfair on McJanet as well, because he's been brilliant. The signing of McJanet alongside Rogers, honestly, like we've shipped a lot of goals this season, to be honest, but it's been in sort of 3 games where we've been hammered in those 3 games. So actually, he's been really, really good, and I think it's interesting that we're looking at a bit of a different transfer policy to what we have done previously under the previous ownership as such, and previous managers, where we've looked at the League of Ireland and we've brought McJanet in, and he's been a really, really good acquisition, and we've brought a bit of Icelandic flair in Svan Thorsen, who, to be fair, had a couple of good games at the start, but has sort of petered off a little bit. I still think he needs the dark arts of English football, I guess, in him a little bit more. And yeah, I think he had a really good game at the weekend, but I still think there's work to do with him. I think there's definitely a player in there. There's some Town fans that have written him off, and I think that's unfair. There's a player in there. It's just he needs a bit of time. It's a big change, He's playing. One of the funny quotes from this season is he's playing on grass now. He's used to playing on AstroTurf.
No, that's true. I've seen it. I saw a little bit of Breidablik last season in Europe, and the common thing for Icelandic players, apart from obviously playing on grass surfaces, they're extremely versatile Icelandic players. You have a lot that can play a number of positions. I think Svan Thorsen sees himself as maybe a winger out who could maybe go at centre forward at times. So I love that Grimsby Town have got an Icelandic player. It's fantastic.
Right,
it makes sense when you think about it. Iceland's the other way, isn't it? Because you got to get round the British Isles to get. I was thinking it was Norwegian. He could just hop across on the ferry to go over to the port. But I love it all the same.
Yeah,
it's great. It's great. It's great to have a bit of foreign flair. I think it's always more exciting. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's always a bit more exciting. I think when you've got a bit of foreign flair.
No, I definitely agree with that. You pick up an international player, you do think, okay, I'm intrigued by this.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Speaking of players closer to home, Jason, there was Cam Gardner was actually poached from Scunthorpe at 16, and he's making a real name for himself this season. He started for last game of last season away at Crawley, and he seems to have benefited from that opportunity. And obviously impressed in the FA Youth Cup last season, and seems to have kind of come into the equation with players like Charles Burnham injured, and those sorts of gaps. I think Abiku's been injured as well. Those kind of gaps in that front three. There's been a window and there's been an opportunity, and he's kind of grabbed it.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably the plan at the start of the season was probably to get him out on loan to sort of a National League or a National North team this season, if we'd had everybody fully fit.
Yeah, at the moment.
Say again.
So I think he's better than the National League North at the moment.
So do I. No, so do I. I do. I completely agree. But I think at the start of the season, where he would have been in the pecking order, they'd have looked to get him out on loan somewhere. But because of the injuries we've had, he's absolutely grasped the chance and ran with it. He scored his first goal last night, obviously, his first professional goal last night against Chesterfield. And yeah, he's doing really, really well. And again, I know we spoke about the international club. It's always nice as well to have a homegrown lad that's sort of from around the local area doing so well. I mean, last night, I don't know if you saw in the cup, but we had 2 lads out of the youth team, 2 17-year-olds playing.
Yeah, there's a right back, wasn't there, who started?
Yeah, Store at right back and Brown in the midfield. Really good to see. And we know David Artell is known for this. And the last time I came on the pod, actually, Gab, when we was looking for a new manager, And obviously, I think you mentioned at the time about David Artell, and you thought it'd be sort of a good fit. And I'm starting to really see that around. He really trusts in the youth, and it's so great to see because we've not had an abundance of players come through our youth academy in recent years. You know, we've had a few, the likes of Harry Clifton that's sort of gone on to Doncaster. Max Wright was in the team a little bit, and obviously he had injury problems and he's dropped into the National League. But it's really nice to see some players coming through from the youth team as well now, and Cam Gardner's probably the pick of the bunch.
Yeah, I think what I would say with that, Jason. I mean, it's great that you're recognising Artell's managerial quality. I've definitely been a massive fan of his for a long time. But I think in terms of the academy, maybe worth being a little bit patient because I think the structure of the academy is very different to Artell's previous club, and I think he's kind of got to impose a new style of play almost on the club as a whole collectively. Now, obviously, this is very much Jason and Andrew's sort of idea that they want to go in this direction, but this is kind of a new in terms of the last 12 months. It's that this style of play has only just come in, so I think it's still taking time for the academy to kind of coach that style into some of these players, but I think we're seeing the fruits of it now because, like you say, you got Cam Gardner coming through and a couple of others coming next along the conveyor belt.
Yeah, and you know what as well? When they both played yesterday, they didn't look out of place. Storr and Brown, both really comfortable on the ball, like you've just described. And you're not going to see it in 12 months, like you just said. I think it's going to take longer than that. But I think we're already starting to see that sort of the fruits of his labour around the style of play that we want to do, and it being embedded all the way through, sort of like the pyramid of the teams as such. So yeah, really, really good to see and exciting. I think I haven't been this excited as a Grimsby fan for quite some time. Yeah, there was a stat that I heard. The last time we won 5 away games in a row was in the 50s, and it was when Bill Shankly was manager. So yeah, it's exciting times. It really, really is exciting times.
Well, Bill Shankly, David Artell, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Newport away on Saturday. Let's make it 6.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited to get that. I'm that excited. I'm making the 8-hour round trip on Saturday to go to watch us against Newport. So, yeah,
well,
exciting times.
Enjoy your trip to Newport, Jason, and thanks so much for joining. I love the stuff that you do on the View from the Finders podcast. So always enjoy that, and hopefully catch up with you later in the season.
Thanks, Gab. Thanks, Jen. See you soon.
Cheers.
Guys, just before we sort of round up this evening, I do want to talk about a couple of the front runners for promotion. And Ed, I'm really intrigued by both Notts County and Doncaster for different reasons, because I love the sort of the classical style that Notts County play and the way they use the ball and how smooth they are. But then I also really like Doncaster for how they've got some really strong runners in that team. They're a very high energy team. They like to play on the front foot. They look to be a very aggressive side, and both of them seem to be built in their respective managers' images.
I was about to look back and say, have we seen them play each other yet? And we didn't. It was a 1-1 draw. So recently, of course, where Notts County scored a fantastic goal. I think I might just prefer the general midfield makeup of Doncaster, but I really do love some of the individuals in the Notts side. I'm loving Jatton more and more week on week.
Yeah.
He's looking like a really, really top find for them. I still think they're playing the wrong wing backs, as in the wrong sides. Notts County.
Yeah, actually,
Kellen Gordon on the left, Cerula on the right.
It's Kellen Gordon on the left, isn't it? And Nick Cerula on the right, where you'd think it'd be the other way around, wouldn't it? Yeah.
There seems to be something in Stuart Maynard's mind there, and I'd quite like to know exactly what that is.
Whether
he wants to be playing inverted, doesn't he?
He probably wants Jacob Badeau and Lewis McCarry to sort of be the overlapping centre halves. And I think what kind of works in their favour is last season you had Carl Cameron as your overlapping centre half, but Carl Cameron isn't very quick, and I think he really struggled in those 1v1 duels. Whereas you look at Jacob Badeau now, and he can look after himself. So whenever
he glides around Badeau.
Yeah, for sure. But I think whenever you see Badeau in those slightly sort of ominous positions, would I say, you know that he's got the pace and the strength.
Well, I suppose there's the other thing to factor in that really that left-hand side would be Jonah Jones. Naturally.
Do you know what?
Are you about to say they're not missing him? You're about to say they're not missing him, aren't you?
I
You're
don't
about
know.
to say the reigning League Two Player of the Year, Jody Jones, is not a loss to Notts County.
It is. Oh God,
He's
this
about-
is
he's
so.
about to say
I
it.
know how stupid that sounds, but oh.
Send him to Salford.
We got Ada Laken, so you know we're not off
Another one you can stick
Doncaster.
on the bench and not put in the right position.
Yeah,
Probably playing at centre back now.
we've played him at left wing back. Yeah, we have done that. Yeah, it has happened.
I think there's something about that. I'm not going to say that it's a net positive not having Jody Jones in the Notts County for Notts County, because he's a brilliant footballer. And to be fair, when I have seen him this season, I think he has looked a bit more switched on defensively. But I do think that there's something about having natural fullbacks in the wing back positions, even if they're extremely attack minded, rather than having wingers in the wing back situations. That means that the defensive dynamics for Notts County are a little bit different, and I am mindful of the benefit in that sense.
Okay, Gab hates Jody Jones. Understood.
Yeah. You're just to summarise it. Oh, brilliant. So what about you, Dan? I think I asked you earlier. So which of the top sides have you seen in person then, Danny? You mentioned Fleetwood that you're a big fan of. In terms of Walsall,
well, I may have seen Walsall, but I don't remember him making an impression on me. So I may not have done. Crew I've seen, but I'm one of those people who every time we play them, and I don't see much.
I don't quite get Crew at the minute.
That's that. There we go. I was kind of going to go there. What's they always seem to do quite well, and I never feel that much threat from them, even when we play away from them.
I think I like that defensive five. I think they're light at the minute, lighter in midfield and forward areas than they want to be at the minute. There's a little bit of injury reasons to that, but I don't feel like we've seen that full quality midfield and front line yet that I was expecting to.
I'm slightly worried about Crew in terms of against the ball. I think they're very good defensively, but I think that when they start Omar Bogle up top, there's one. So I watched some of their game from the weekend. I think it was a draw at Warsaw. And so basically, Omar Bogle is a centre forward out of possession. And there was a moment where he chose to track back on the left channel rather than go and press from the front. And it felt to me, I don't know whether this is accurate, but that was kind of how I interpret it, as though it was kind of the easier option. Oh, I'll just drop back into the left and sort of, and it was actually left for Shiloh Tracy to do all the pressing. And I'm not sure that's necessarily Omar Bogle's role to be. Yeah, I think he was kind of taking the easy way out a little bit. Now I'm going to caveat that because he actually scored a really good goal. It was a lovely finish, great 1-2 with Maciej Holacek. So every credit to him for that. But I'm slightly concerned about what Omar Bogle does against the ball and I think over the course of the season, those sorts of limitations can stack up. And that's where I'm kind of not sure about whether.
Well, I still think that was meant to be Kane Hemming's spot. Ideally, it was meant to be the main forward in his team. And it's the ongoing conversation, which always happens about Chris Long. The talent, the fitness, and the fitness just don't match. It's a frustrating thing with Chris Long. And I'm starting to reach a stage where I'm just saying it might not happen for him. Sadly. It just, you have to reach that stage at some point, and it's a real shame.
There comes a time.
MK Dons, Gab.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I think MK Dons are in a really good form at the moment. I tell you
just as long as they don't play Wimbledon, that's all right.
I was really impressed with Kane Thompson-Summers, the lad they signed from non-league. I think he's a really good ball carrier. Some of his diagonals, the wing backs, super impressive. So for me, he's the one that I've got on my mind at the moment.
I was fascinated. I know it's too Salford-centric, but I was interested to see how Callum Hendry would actually work out there.
There's been a recent talk with him, Danny. Hendry's not quite sure where he's going to fit in this because he's not going to displace the experience of Scott Hogan, who's coming as a free agent up top. I think there's a possibility of him being one of the 2 10s, but then you have got competition from Alex Gilby, Tommy Lee, Stephen Wern, Joe Pritchard, those guys.
Too slow. He's always been too slow. The thing is, I'll just tell you one quick thing, that it's amazing at my club at the moment to be able to see what a counter-attack can be, where you've got, say, Kellyan Mai, Killian Kawase, Tyrese Forner, when he's not got the ball, that is, and a few other players who can bomb on. When you had a break in the old days, it would be Matt Smith and Callum Hendry. I could catch them too. You know what I mean? And so I never really understood, apart from maybe being quite good at like pivot link-up play, and he's quite a neat footballer, Callum Hendry. He's not a goal machine, and he's definitely not fast.
He had a little hot streak to you guys. That's what I remember. But that you're right. Over a long-term period, you're not looking at a ton of goals.
A hat-trick against Tranmere, you mean? I think
I thought it was a bit of a purple patch, wasn't it?
No,
he got 5 in a few
he
days,
is streaky. You're right. You're absolutely right. But that was his zenith. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would say that, yeah, it's Hendry. I think he said himself, I'm not quite sure where I think this now. They'll come back to injury because of what Scott Hogan offers, because that skill will be so quality, because everything else in that build up is so clear now. I think Lindsay's coming. MK have really got exactly what they wanted.
Do you know what? Because I
saw... And Aaron the main's been excellent.
He has been fantastic, but I saw MK Dons at Salford early in the season under Mike Williamson, and I thought, firstly, I thought against the ball they were far too passive. But secondly, even with the ball, I thought they were too formulaic. Whereas I think for any possession-based side, you want to have that balance between having certain processes and certain systems that get the best out of the team, whilst also leaving enough room for individual imagination, creativity, and freedom. And I think Scott Lindsay seems to have that balance right, because it feels like somebody like Kane Thompson-Summers feels like he's freed up to play those diagonal passes and carry the ball or do something a little bit out of the blue, where I don't know that I could imagine them doing an MK Dons player doing that under Mike Williamson. So it feels like they're playing with a bit more freedom at the moment, which for now I think is a real positive.
Just one thing, if I could, it's amazing how I'd say pre-season, everybody was saying, "Oh, MK Dons, just don't turn up. We'll just give you a free pass. You're up. It's fine. It's you're there." Everybody rated Mike Williamson. I did. I still do, even though Carlisle looked absolutely shocking when we played them recently, and MK Dons weren't that good when we played them. It's amazing how a reputation just goes to tatters so quick.
Kind of.
And it's. And I don't think us three are the ficklest, but it's difficult not to get kind of dragged into that when everybody's saying, "Oh well," because there was like a mini protest after that game by MK Dons fans about saying, "Can we give him to somebody? Can we get rid of Williamson now?" So it was. It seems very odd, and I do think he'll rebound, because I just think what he did at Gateshead, albeit a little while ago, was just one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree with you, Danny, in the sense that I think he's a very good technical coach. So, and I agree. Sometimes I'm guilty of kind of getting too carried away by the recency bias, and maybe. And one thing I really want to try and do is keep a bigger perspective, and I try my best to do that. At the same time, I think with Mike Williamson, one thing that I've sort of realised is the value of, if you're not a super charismatic coach, I think it's really important to have people alongside you who can do that side of the job. So, Gareth Ainsworth, who's just taken the Shrewsbury job, he's a brilliant motivator, but he's got Richard Dobson alongside him, who's a very good strategist, and they cover all the bases between them. And I think there's no shame in that in a coaching team. If everyone in the world is going to have a specific set of skills, and really what you want the other set of skills,
the yin and the yang, as they say.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what I think Mike Williamson's got to find at this stage of his career. Whereas I think Scott Lindsay has got a bit of both. I think he's a very good technical coach, but I also think he can lift people. I think he can motivate people. I think he's got.
If I can interject, speaking with Danilo Orsi a couple of months ago, slightly different because we're talking about Mark Robinson here rather than Mike Williamson, but
sure,
the immediate thing that stands out, he mentions they're both similar with the terms of play they like to do, but Lindsay's incredibly more vocal on the side of the pitch. It's always, you need to keep, it's I think you kind of hear it with maybe other coaches about what they want in the build to the game, and then when they get to the game, they can't just leave them to it and expect them to deal with those problems themselves. Whereas Lindsay is very much coaching you still through the game. Go here, play this pass here, work this shape, make the shape different and that. And I think it's particularly noticeable these last couple of seasons with his work at Crawley, now his work at MK Dons.
Just on that, Ed, if I could, again, from very, very brief what I saw when they were playing Oldham, that was all Gateshead, when Williamson was there, I felt that Williamson was quiet, but I looked at his team and his team looked ethereally calm. Like they totally understood. I've probably said it to Gab before. They downloaded the Williamson files. They had them. they knew what to do, and that decision.
Ed Francis was like a robot in that team.
Well,
just constantly knew exactly. I'm getting the ball here, I'm turning it, I'm playing it there, and I just keep doing that over and over again. You can't stop me.
Yeah, it was the calmness, and I was thinking, is this not? I wrote him in the National League. This is National League, and I was looking at the ground, and I thought, what am I missing here? And then from then, I thought, I remember him playing for Newcastle years ago. And then he went to MK when I thought maybe I would have preferred him than Cal Robinson, and whatever. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it just people were writing Arteta off not long after he was at Arsenal because things weren't going his way. With the right recruitment and the right identity behind it, I was always a massive fan of his. I can say that, though. You wouldn't know any different. I can say that. But trust me, I was. My friends were like, you can't still back him. I was like, absolutely, yeah. He's got that midfield on a string. So sometimes you just see something very early in a manager's career where you think, no matter what happens, something will actually surface here eventually. But it's difficult, I suppose, when a club needs results. They may want to move him aside. But I just think eventually the arc will turn for him.
Well, what a great way to finish off. I think very, very interesting words there, Danny. So thanks so much for joining us this evening, representing the One Up Front podcast of Salford City and the Old Dead Tree fanzine. Thanks to my brilliant co-host as well, Ed Walker, fountain of knowledge on all things fourth tier. Thanks to you for watching at home. Thanks to all my guests, and we'll see you again next week.